Hi, welcome back to McCarthy Performance. Today we're working on the 565. It's 10200 block, so unless we have a 10200 intake for it, we will be using spacer plates. Customer told me he had a 10200 intake and didn't find out till later was not. It was for a 9800 block, so it's not a big deal. I know a lot of guys don't like using these. If you can get the taller intake, obviously wider. It helps out. It saves time, but we don't have that option. So I'm going to put spacer plates on the intake and show you how I do it. These plates have been used. I'm going to do it a little different than they did it. I'm going to line them up as good as I can to the port, and then we're going to find out where that is on the intake. Normally, on a situation like this, I would usually mount the plates to the heads. Now, 6 of one, half dozen another, it really don't much matter, but if you use a 9800 and you change the intake, the plates are already on the heads. You can use tension springs or a tension pin, excuse me, or you can use flatheads and drill and tap the heads on the corners. We're going to use a tension pin, roll pin, some people call it. So we're going to get the plates moved around to get them kind of close to where I think they should be, and I'm going to scribe them. So, allergies, excuse me, I'm sorry. Something's in the air that's bothering my nose. So anyways, we're going to put some set screws, 3/8. They're going to kind of hold the plates to keep them from moving around. So we're going to thread them in there. You can tape them. You can do all sorts of stuff. But this is what we're going to do. And we're going to make up some shims. I've already cut them down for the thickness of the gasket. Now, the gasket material that I'm using is 60 thousandths thick. So it's going to be basically 120 thousandths on each side of the head because we'll be using 2 gaskets on this. So we're going to put the set screws into the heads. It'll keep the plates from moving around a lot or dropping into the lifter valley. And we'll get back to it. So here's the set screws that we're using. We're just screwing them into the head to kind of keep the plates from completely falling down. These holes are slotted quite a bit, so there's quite a bit of movement up and down. Sometimes you can take some masking tape and tape them here, but we're going to try this. Okay, we thread them in so they're a little bit below flush. Now I've taken some gasket material, and this will assimilate the gasket. So we're going to put that underneath here, like so. It already wants to drop down, so but that's okay. Once we get the intake on it, we'll move them around. Okay. We're a little bit above the spacer plate. See if we get her to go down a little further. It's about dead-headed right there. So now we're going to set the intake on. We're going to space it up again. So like I said, it'll be an 1/8 inch on each side with a standard conventional intake gasket roughly. So we got that side up. There will be a little bit of compression, but not much. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look down the port, and we're going to move the plate around until we like it, where it fits the best. And I'll put some screws in here, and I'll tighten it down. That'll hold everything true, and then we'll, we'll scribe it. And then when we take the intake off, we'll put the plates on, and we'll look at the scribe, and that's where we'll put the plate. I got this tape on here really quick just to kind of protect that O-ring, but I think it's going to be in the way for visual inspection. So I'm just going to remove it for now because we're not sitting on any surface that's going to hurt the O-ring. I had it sitting on a steel counter. I didn't want to scratch the O-ring or scratch the surface, so that'll be fine for now. I'm looking down the ports now. Basically, the rule of thumb that I do is I don't care if the port on the head, if the intake drops into it. So in other words, if the port is a little bit smaller and it drops in, that'll keep any reversion coming back up through the port. Because, of course, we got a supercharger. We're not going to get very much inversion from the port. But basically, to have it 100% perfect match, you're not going to see a heck of a lot of performance gain there. And depending on if the gasket gets changed around, you've got to glue the gaskets down to the plates or they'll move a little bit. So, you know, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but it sure helps to get it as close as you can. And a lot of times they leave a little bit more material in these ports and you'd have to do some grinding. Right now, we're not too bad. There's always a little bit of this going on with, depending on the intake and the ports and the heads and the plates, you can get a little bit of shift. That's why probably a lot of guys don't like putting these plates on, because a lot of times you can get different shift and different offset on the ports just a little bit, but all that adds up. So we're going to screw it down in a couple points, put a little pressure on it and see where it lays, and then I'll show you exactly what we've got going on now. We do have a little bit of an indifference in there. Now, when I pin this to this intake, there's a couple things you can do if the ports are way off on the plates. You can weld them. If you screw them down, you could probably use epoxy, although I wouldn't recommend that. It's probably going to break off. But I think on this particular job, we're going to bump it around and see how much room we've got and how much offset from side to side, how much shifting's going on, and how close we can get everything. And once we get everything as close as we can, we're going to scribe this down, and that should be pretty damn good. As long as we have the room in the threads and everything does not interfere with the bolts going down, we should be able to jiggle stuff around and everything back down on this side. And I can live with that. We might try to tap the plate up just a little bit higher. Because it's slotted out, I can go up and down with the plate a little bit and then side to side. So we're going to maybe tap that up a little bit. You can see that it doesn't, depending on how you look straight at it, it doesn't look too bad. You can see the spacer plate there. That's the shiny part. That's the part that isn't blasted. This has all been probably as cast and then cleaned up and blasted. So it's going to look a little shinier, but actually the ports don't line up horribly bad. Now we're talking about port shift or offset on this side. It's not too bad. So we'll probably tap the plate up a little bit here. Then what I'll do is I'll lock it down tight, and then I'll scribe the outside of the intake to the plate. We have our shims simulating the head gaskets, intake gaskets. So this side of the intake is not tight because we adjusted it this way, and I left this side loose a little bit so we could wiggle the plate around. And I don't think I'm going to do too much, although I might bump it a shade up. Okay, what we got going on is I was talking about the shift in the port alignment from one side of the block to the other. And if you look down in here, you can see that we matched the intake pretty good with the plate, but we're over the port a little bit. So I'm going to tap the plate this way to move it this way. Once I get them as lined up as good as I can, I will scribe it and then pin it. We need to go a little bit more. We want to split the difference. That port looks really good. You know, we're not going to get perfect. We're over that one. We're fine there. Back here, don't look too bad. On the other side here, I'll show you. This doesn't look horrible, but, you know, we'll have to do a little port matching on it. Wiggle around the camera here. This doesn't look too bad. I can work with this. Customer doesn't want the intake port matched, so I'm just going to move the plates around. And like I said, as long as the intake's a little bit smaller and it drops in, we're good, you know. So, but just because we got this side all lined up, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to line up this way. So we'll round a little bit more on it and see, meaning, you know, this port being in direct alignment on this whole side does not necessarily mean that this side's going to line up exactly. So it's going to be a little bit of compromise here. We'll move it around a little bit more. And now you can see how much offset there is in the ports from the head. And this is just kind of the way it is. This is a special intake. It's made for the blower with a blow-off plate. Well, it's over here. So, you know, they don't, as far as I know, make anything bigger. It is a rectangular port. It's just that these 360 heads, you know, they're opened up. There is no way that you can open that intake up that much because it feels from the backside that, well, right about where the valley tray and the tube separate, right about there, it's going to get thin. I'm not really worried about that too much. I will probably match them a little bit better. There is a little bit of overhang. And like I said, would have to build it up. It's not so much the intake as so much as where the ports are and however they were matched. They're off a little bit. So if these plates were a little bit smaller, we could blend everything in. But we're not going to do that. But I will clean up a little bit in here. These plates have been used. Somebody's gone in and hit it with a die grinder right here. Now, I have a set of plates that I matched for my old dart heads on my 598, and they were 380 Pro 1 or Pro 2s. They were the Pro 2 heads, the second design 380 head. Did I say 381? I meant 380. Anyways, they're the same size, if not a little bit bigger, so that's not going to work. So we're going to use these plates. That's what he gave me to use. So yeah, I'm well aware of all this, and, you know, don't send me any hate mail on it because I really don't want to hear about it. So we're going to center up. I've got this one scribed where I want to put a pin, And I've got this one scribed and marked where I want to put a pin here. This is an existing hole. We're going to utilize that just because it's already there. So we'll get going on it. It's all pretty much set up to go. So it looked high and low for a center drill. We're just not going to be able to use a center drill on it. I'd have to order some more. It'll be accurate enough with that drill. It does have a little wobble to it, but I'll tap the pins. The pins will fit tight into the intake, and then I'll open up the plate a little bit so the pins will slide in and out without having to hammer everything together, although we could do it that way. Usually just hold the gasket up to the surface where you want it, drive the pin completely through the plate and the intake, and it will punch a hole. Although I'd rather not do it that way. I have done it that way. Okay, from front to back, we're off a little bit, so I'll move it. Which really don't matter much. If you make both sides a little different, it'll keep you from getting the plates mixed up. But okay, that should be plenty close enough. So we'll hit this one next, and the gasket will seal this surface, although, we are punching a hole through it, but we're not punching a hole through all the gaskets. So there'll be one gasket that will seal this, but you also can just take a dab of silicone, and I've done that too in the past, but I've never had them be much of an issue for leaking. We're going to center up on this. This is a little bit bigger than the pin, obviously, but I'm thinking that I'm not going to do nothing. We're going to leave that alone. Somebody put a flathead screw in the middle. I don't know how they got them to line up with it, moving the plate back and forth, but they only had it in one point. So we've got both ends. Nothing's going to move. I'm liking it where it's at. I'm not going to screw around with that because I'm not going to go out and buy a bigger roll pin to put in there, or tension spring pin. I keep saying tension pin. So we're going to call this side done. I'm going to do the other side. It's going to be much the same as this. So this is kind of how much work it takes to put one of these plates on. I might have another video of me maybe gasket matching it a little bit closer, or matching that plate for the gasket a little bit better. But not much of a video, kind of keeping them short, still having a lot of problems with my phone, and that's how I'm doing these videos. So maybe I'll get a GoPro or something eventually, but right now I'm having thoughts about even continuing making videos. It takes a little bit of time, and I'm having problems just getting the work out the door, so this takes time to make these videos. So probably going to back off on videos, probably make some short ones, but this is probably going to be it for the any video that has any length of me in it talking, which some people might enjoy that. That I'm not going to be doing as many, but I have to decide what I want to do, and the shop is plenty busy, so it's taking a little bit extra time to do these, which I don't mind doing them, but so I'll put a little bit of another video that I started on the Pontiac. I started boring that. I'll put that on the end of this video here, and thanks for watching, and this is kind of how I put these plates on. And like I said, the roll pin will go in here, tension pin, and then these will slide over it, and that's that. Within a thou. Probably more screwing around than most do, but I like to know when the job's done, it's as good as I could get it. So it only takes a little bit more time to do it this way, and I'm not in a hurry. I'd rather have it right than wrong.